This is Under the Classic Rock. Today, we start mixing heavy metal with some spaced out psychedelia. Let's crank up Vanilla Fudge.
Phase 1. Phase 3.
She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride.
Vanilla Fudge became successful by doing what most classic rock bands shied away from, performing other people's songs. They started the practice back in 1965 as the Electric Pigeons on New York's Long Island. Or was it New Jersey? Band bios from allmusic.com to classicbands.com have the band forming on Long Island, or Long Island. The band's website has the band forming in New Jersey.
Yeah, you got a problem with that?
No. Let's just say that the band got its start in the New Jersey, New York area in 1965 as the Electric Pigeons, and then on to just the Pigeons. In the beginning, they were a blue-eyed soul cover band being influenced heavily by the Young Rascals and the Beatles. They played clubs in New Jersey and New York, and as the band progressed, they started to introduce their very own cool interpretations of hit songs. The original Pigeons band was Mark Stein on Hammond organ, Vince Martell on guitar, Tim Bogert on bass, and Joey Brennan on drums. Then the arrangements became quite intricate and musically savvy, and the band soon needed a more technically advanced drummer. That's when the call went out to a local guy who was getting a good reputation as a great live and studio player. Enter Carmine Appice. With Carmine playing drums now, the band continued on their practice of rearranging current material. In 1965 and 1966, the band toured up and down the East Coast, gaining a following, and they played a lot of shows at a club called the Action House out on Long Island. It was at the Action House that the owner took the band under his management wing, and they started to play better and better rooms with their brand of East Coast psychedelic rock. One night at the Action House, their manager convinced a producer of a girl band, the Shangri-Las, they had the hit with Walking in the Sand, he wanted the producer to come hear the band. So George Shadow Morton showed up, listened to the band for a couple drinks, but he was not impressed. Thought they were the same old baloney he'd heard 100 times.
I'm sick of this phony baloney.
Until they played their rendition of another girl band song, The Supremes, You Keep Me Hanging On. Then Mr. Morton heard the cash register go off. He got them into the studio to record You Keep Me Hanging On. He took the finished product and shopped it around. Annette Erdogan from Atlantic Records heard the tape, liked it, and signed the band to Atlantic's smaller label, Atco. So which version of the band's song You Keep Me Hanging On do you like most? The original 1967 version, or the 2004 remake version from the album Then and Now? Take your pick, they both kick ass.
You're gonna die for that.
All right, sorry, it's not going to happen again. Let's get back to the story. Ertegun signed the band, but said the name had to go, didn't like it. The band continued to play under the Pigeons as they recorded their first album and played local clubs. According to Carmine Appice's book, Stick It, the band was playing a club in Long Island. When they were on a break, they started talking to this waitress named Dee Dee, and she had mentioned that her grandfather used to call her Vanilla Fudge. The band looked at one another and said, "Yeah, that's it." The band's name would become Vanilla Fudge. First album was released in June of 1967. The band was soon doing national tours, sharing the stage with Blue Cheer, Mitch Ryder, and the New Yardbirds, who turned into a little-known band called Led Zeppelin. In 1968, Vanilla Fudge was getting TV time on shows like The Beat Club, Wonderama, and The Ed Sullivan Show. 1968 also saw the release of two defining albums. Both The Beat Goes On and Renaissance were elaborate, well-constructed showcases that used the strength of the studio setting to define the band psychedelic rock. In 1969, though, the band went back to basics with Near the Beginning and Rock and Roll. They still are incorporating their elaborate arrangements, but less of the studio electronics.
You know, we haven't really gotten into electronics. We gotten into the instruments that we do play. You know, they're going to be electronic. The organ's electronic. The amps are electronic, you know.
Okay. Then in 1970, they stopped. Played their farewell...
Nah, that's not right.
Well, played their first farewell show, where it all began, at the Action House in Island Park, New York. As with most great classic rock bands, with original members or not, Vanilla Fudge still played numerous gigs when the wind blew the right way. Besides playing gigs, the band also recorded new and rearranged material. In 1984 was Misery, 2002, The Return, 2004, Then and Now. In 2007, they did a whole album of Led Zeppelin tunes called Out Through the Door. Then in 2015 came their last album to date with Spirit of 67. You can still catch shows with most of the original band. Bass player Tim Bogert did finally retire in 2010. Now some true and false before we blow out the fuse on this fudge cake. False. Many takes were needed for the original You Keep Me Hanging On. No, they did it in one take, and it's that cut that still stands today on the original recording. And true, Mark Stein's big organ sound was a huge influence on Deep Purple. Blackmore's original design of Deep Purple was to be a Vanilla Fudge clone.
Hey Bill, this is Sue from Buffalo, New York. I want to let you know I just love Under the Classic Rock. Keep it coming.
Well, thank you. You can hear and download Under the Classic Rock on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Player FM, and on iHeartRadio. I do appreciate it. If you have some suggestions for upcoming shows, comments, you can reach me at undertcr@gmail.com. And thanks again for listening and downloading Under the Classic Rock, and we'll talk to you next time.